See the money won't stay, feed me you. Getting all the piece of pie for your wife. Everybody wanna know how it feels. Everybody wanna see what it's like. Living in a big house, I don't mind. Me and this is the way, this is the place to make your money. Alright. Greenback Boogie.
To understand the key elements of good architecture in Vitruvius' book, we first need to talk about the important qualities of a good architect. Architecture is a field that grows with the help of different subjects and knowledge from various areas. It comes from both practice and theory. Those who understand both well can achieve success more easily. To do this, an architect needs a good education. There are two main parts of architecture, the represented, the representing. An architect must be skilled in both. They should also have natural talents and be eager to learn. To be well educated, an architect should know how to draw, understand geometry, have knowledge of history, be interested in philosophy, understand music, have basic medical knowledge, know about law, and learn about astronomy. Here's why the subjects are important. An architect should know literature to read books and improve memory. They must learn drawing to design buildings properly. Geometry is useful because it teaches how to use tools like a compass and ruler, helps in making buildings plans, and allows architects to calculate measurements and costs. Difficult things like symmetry can be solved using geometry. An architect must know history to understand why some designs are used. For example, in ancient Greece, the city of Caria helped the Persians betray Greece. Later, the Greeks defeated the city and made its women slaves, forcing them to wear ceremonial clothes forever as a sign of shame. Architects used to dress women as statue-like columns in buildings to remind people of their betrayal. Similarly, the Spartans built a monument called the Persian Stone, showing Persian prisoners wearing rich clothing to humiliate them. Many architects used Persian figures holding up buildings to create a unique design. So, knowing history is important for architects. Philosophy helps architects build good character and act with honor instead of greed. It also helps explain how natural forces affect buildings. For example, understanding water systems is important, and only someone who knows natural laws can design them well. Music is also useful because it helps architects understand math. It is needed to adjust large war machines like catapults and scorpions. In theaters, bronze vessels are placed under the audience seats based on mathematical rules to improve sound. Medical knowledge is helpful because health is connected to weather and climate, which affect buildings. An architect must also know the law, especially the rules about building construction. They need to understand astronomy to know the directions: east, west, north, south, equinox, solstice, and the movement of stars. Because of this, architecture requires knowledge from many areas. A good education, like a body, has different parts that work together. An architect does not have to be an expert in every subject, but should know enough about each one. They should be skilled in different arts and create amazing buildings using knowledge from many fields. Many subjects share common ideas. For example, doctors and musicians study the rhythm of the heartbeat and how people move. Astronomers are musicians, also have shared knowledge. In conclusion, an architect needs many skills, but they do not have to be the best in all of them. They just need to know enough to do their job well.
After getting a good education, an architect studies the basic parts of good architecture. Architecture has the following main ideas. Order. This means that all parts of a building should fit well together in size. Order is created throughout proportion. Proportion helps make sure all parts of a building match each other. Design. Making a building look nice by using proper order. There are three types of design. Iconography. Drawing a building's plan. It's done with a ruler and compass. Orthography. Drawing the front view of a building with the right scale. Scenography. Making a perspective drawing by adding shadows. These design types come from study and creativity. Form. This means making a building look beautiful. A building looks good when all parts are the right size compared to the wall structure. Symmetry. Each part of a building should create a balanced look. Symmetry is used in temples, weapons like ballists and ships. Convenience. The materials and design used in buildings should be tested and suitable. This is achieved in three ways: by being useful, by following tradition, and by being inspired by nature. Research management. This is an important part of architecture. It means using materials and workings in the best way. An architect shouldn't waste money or use rare and expensive materials. Another part of research management is design house based on people's family life, money situation, and social status. Houses for different people should fit their way of living and needs.
Architecture is divided into three main branches. First, construction, second, making sun clocks, and the third, mechanical engineering. In this part, I will talk about public buildings, which are a sub-branch of construction. Public buildings are divided into three types. First, defensive buildings, second, religious buildings, and the third one is service buildings. Every building should be strong, useful, and beautiful. For defensive buildings, choosing the right place is very important. They should be built on high ground, in a place without constant fog, and far from swamps. If the city is near the sea, it should not face south or west. The balance of heat and cold is also important because temperature changes can affect both the city and its people. For example, when wine cellars, grain storage, dried fish, and fruits can spoil because of extreme heat or cold. According to the Greeks, everything in nature is made of four elements: fire, water, earth, and air. The way these elements mix decides the spatial qualities of living things. Nature tries to keep balance, but if the air in one area becomes too heavy, it can affect the human body. Cold and wet winds can also be harmful and cause health problems. Ancient methods for choosing city locations. The ancient Romans had a special way to choose where to build a city. Before building, they would let sheep eat grass in that area for some time. Then they would sacrifice the sheep and examine their livers. If the liver was healthy and strong, they decided the land was good for humans and built their city there. If the liver was unhealthy, they believed the land and water were bad for people. Then they would find a better place to build.
Building strong city walls is very important for a safe settlement. The foundations should be dug deep into solid ground. The walls should be built as strong as possible. The defense towers should stick outward so that soldiers in the side towers can shoot enemies trying to climb the walls. The wall thickness should be wide enough for two armed men walk without touching each other. The distance between defense towers should be less than the range of an arrow. This way, enemies can be stopped by arrows shot between the towers. Defense towers should be round or polygonal. Square towers are weak because war machines like the battering ram can break their corners easily. Not all areas need walls. If there are high hills outside the city, those places should be well protected. Inside the walls, there should be a second inner wall foundation. This inner wall should be far enough from the outer wall so that a full military unit can defend the city.
After the cities are planned and white roads are built, public places like temples, the forum and other areas should be chosen. If the city is near the sea, the forum should be next to the harbor. If the city far from the sea, the forum should be in the center. Temples of the sea, main gods like Jupiter, Juno and Minerva, should be on a high place, so they can see the whole city. Temples of Mars should be outside the city, near army training areas. Temples of Venus should be close to the harbor. Also, city buildings should be made to send volcanic energy outside the city. This helps to protect the city from fire.
Architecture is a very special functional art. It defines space so that we can live inside it. The most important factor is functionality. The famous photographer Andreas Feringer took a photo of a cemetery in New York. The tombstones look like skyscrapers in American cities. From an airplane, even the tallest skyscraper looks like a sculpture, not a building where people can live. But as the airplane flies lower, the buildings become clear. They take human scale and become homes for people. The buildings move to a new stage of existence, not just for looking at, but for living in. An architect is like a theater director. They design the stage for our lives. One big challenge for architects is that their work is meant to last for a long time. They must design for the future, so the building stays useful over time. Architects are also similar to gardeners. They work with living things, but people are less predictable than plants. This unpredictability can cause a building to be used differently than the architect planned. A sign of good architecture is when it is used as intended. Unlike a painter's sketch, which is personal, architecture is not personal. The architect stays in the background like a composer writing music for others to play. Architecture is the art of organization. It is not emotional, but this brings clarity and quality. Architecture is made by ordinary people, for ordinary people. It should be easy to understand. For example, the St. Maria Maggiore church in Rome was built in a neglected area. Tourists visiting the church do not notice the surroundings. But years ago, a monastery school was located there. The children played by using the church walls. Without realizing it, they experienced key architectural elements, horizontal surfaces and vertical walls on sloped ground. Children naturally explore their surroundings. They learn that some places are hard, or others are soft. An example of a soft form made from a hard material is an early 19th century English bridge. Though made of solid material, it looks shaped and molded. The opposite example, a hard form, is the Palazzo Punta di Diamanti in Rome. A form can also give the feeling of weight or lightness. These impressions come from surface texture. Some buildings have a single effect, just hard or soft, but most combine different surface types. Architects use these elements to design spaces that people can experience.
To understand objects, we must look at the tools created by humans. We see that the humans imprint their own personalities onto every tool. Each tool has its own unique effect on our minds. In this way, humans first leave their mark on the tools they create, and then these tools begin to influence the human in return. For example, a tennis racket helps us hit the ball better than we can with just our hands. But the most important aspect is not this. Using the racket gives us a feeling of vitality and makes us feel more energetic. If we look at another sport item such as equestrian boots, we notice that they evoke different emotions. The boots carry a sense of aristocracy. Or take the umbrella. It is both elegant and practical. When we define the impressions objects leaves on us, we begin to treat them as living beings with their own personalities. It's not just a tennis racket. Everything related to the game evokes the same feelings. As we move from these everyday examples to architecture, we see that the best buildings are created with a unique style. These buildings, just like objects, are made with a special spirit, and this spirit is transferred to others. Often, the message that is intended to be communicated is harmonization. When people come together, they try to look as similar to each other as possible. In paintings from a particular time period, people often look quite similar. Similarly, the buildings, trees, and towns of that period also match the era. When a period ends, historians identify the style of that time and give it a name, but the people living in that style are often unaware of it. The goal of a good architecture is to create an unified whole. Understanding architecture is not the same as identifying the style of a building. Simply seeing architecture is not enough. You must experience it. The human relationship with objects can generally be explained like this. Children start playing with objects. At some point, most children have the desire to build a shelter. This desire can take thousands of forms, but the common factor is that the child is enclosing a space for their own use. Animals can also create shelters for themselves, but the same species always creates them in the same way. Only humans change shelters based on needs, climate, and cultural order. The child's play becomes an adult's creation, and humans gradually try to shape all space around them. Bringing this order and relationship to the human environment is the architect's task.
First, human-centered approach. Vitruvius places humans at the center of architecture. He says, buildings should match the human body size. In his book, The Architecture, he talks about the golden ratio and how architecture should also have harmony and order, like the human body. Rasmussen says that architecture is not just about beauty. The main goal is how a space makes people feel. In experiencing architecture, he talks about how people move, feel, and interact in the space. He believes that a building is only complete when people live in it. Both agree that the architecture should focus on humans. Vitruvius uses mathematical proportions while Rasmussen focuses on the feelings and experiences of people. Secondly, functionally and user experience. Vitruvius thinks that one of the main principles of architecture is utilitas, and also means usefulness. Buildings should be practical and fit people's daily lives. A building shouldn't be only beautiful, but also serve its purpose well. Rasmussen disagrees with thinking of architecture only as a visual art. He believes the value of architecture shows when people use it. He says good design can only happen if we understand how people move, feel, and react to light and sound in space. Both believe that a building must be functionally and user-friendly, not just beautiful. Vitruvius explains the true of architectural principles, and Rasmussen focuses on human experience. Thirdly, harmony with nature and material use. Vitruvius believes architecture should be inspired by nature. He says materials should be chosen based on the climate and the natural environment.
Rasmussen says materials have more than just a visual effect. They also have tactile and emotional effects on people. The way a material feels should guide how it is used in architecture. But I agree that architecture should work well with nature. Vitruvius focuses on following nature's laws, while Rasmussen focuses on how nature can be experienced and felt through materials. Fourth, and finally, proportion and spatial order. Vitruvius said proportions and symmetry are essential in architecture. He says every part of a building should fit together in harmony, just like the human body. He believes architecture should be balanced mathematically. Rasmussen is less focused on numbers and more on how spaces affect human emotions. He believes understanding how space, light, and shadows create feelings is very important for good architecture. Vitruvius sees proportions as a mathematical rule, while Rasmussen looks at how people experience space and the feelings it creates. Conclusion: meeting of classical and modern ideas, even though Vitruvius and Rasmussen lived in different times, they have many similar ideas. For experience, both believe architecture should focus on humans. Both think buildings should be useful and functional. Both emphasize the importance of nature and materials. Both agree that proportion and space affect how people feel in a building. Vitruvius uses a more logical, systematic approach, while Rasmussen looks at the things from the more sensory and emotional perspective. Rasmussen reinterprets Vitruvius's ideas with modern ideas about how people experience spaces. These ideas from both thinkers are the foundation for modern and user-centered design and architecture.
First, approach: theoretical versus experiential. Vitruvius' architectural approach is based on strict rules and systematic methods. He argues that architecture should be built on mathematical proportions, symmetry, and structural requirements. In his work, he explains that an ideal building design should be based on specific geometric and mathematical principles. Unlike him, Rasmussen focuses on human perception and spatial experience rather than strict rules. He believes that a building's beauty and success are not only based on mathematical proportions. The most important thing is how people move, how people feel and perceive the space. Their differences: Vitruvius focuses on strict rules and ideal proportions, while Rasmussen places experience and sensory perception at the center of architecture. Second, architectural aesthetics: geometry versus senses. Vitruvius argues that a building should be proportional, symmetrical, and balanced. He adopts classical Greek and Roman architectural styles, defending mathematical harmony and ideal forms. For example, the columns of a temple should follow specific rules of proportion. For Rasmussen, aesthetics is based more on human perception than geometric proportions. He asks questions like, how does a building make you feel? Is it pleasant to be inside? How does it feel when you touch its texture? These questions are more important than geometric rules. Their differences: Vitruvius explains aesthetics with mathematical and symmetrical principles, while Rasmussen relates aesthetics to human sensory responses to the space. Third, human-space relationship: static versus dynamic. Vitruvius says that the human body should be the unit of measurement in building design. The Vitruvian Man, which is the famous drawing by Leonardo da Vinci, represents the perfect proportion of the human body applied to architecture.